Chapter 1. The Silence After the Storm. The war had ended, but the silence it left behind was cold, literally. In Sofia, the wind howled through broken window frames, and heating systems remained quiet. Elena Dimitrova stood in the dark, staring at the electric heater that no longer worked. The power had been cut again, just like last night, just like the night before. Outside, car tires crackled over frozen puddles. Inside her apartment, Elena placed another thick woolen blanket over her 7-year-old daughter, Mira, who was curled up in a corner with a flashlight and a picture book. "Mommy?" Mira whispered. "Do we have enough candles?" "Just enough," Elena smiled, kneeling beside her and tucking the blanket tighter. "We'll make it cozy, like a camping trip." But this wasn't a camping trip. This was life after war. The Ukraine conflict had ruptured energy ties across the continent. Russian gas pipelines were gone. Prices soared, supplies dwindled, and Sofia, like many cities, paid the price. Elena was an energy systems engineer, trained to build grids, optimize flows, manage backups, but none of that mattered if there was no fuel to flow. The national grid was stretched thin. Her job had turned into a mix of triage, paperwork, and public apologies. That night, she sat at her dining table, bundled in her winter coat, sketching lines across a sheet of paper. Not for work, but for something else. A new kind of system. A system that didn't depend on imports or politicians. Something smaller, local, resilient. She circled the name of her neighborhood, District 5, and beside it, she wrote one word: hope. Chapter 2. A Spark of an Idea. The next morning, Elena walked briskly across the frozen cobblestones to Café Clementina, one of the few places in the city still running on an old diesel generator. Toma Ivanov, her old friend from university, was already there sipping black coffee and reading the headlines. Winter deaths climb as blackouts continue. "You picked a terrible time to be optimistic," he said as she sat down. "I'm not being optimistic, I'm being practical," she replied. "What if we built a microgrid just for District 5? Toma leaned back, skeptical. "You mean like solar panels, batteries, community storage? Sounds expensive." "It is, but what's more expensive is doing nothing. What if we powered just the essentials, the clinic, a few apartment blocks, street lights? People would see that it's possible." "You'd need permits, equipment, staff, and money," he added. "I have diagrams. I have students who work for food and credit. And I have you," she grinned. Toma laughed. "All right, fine, but you'll need a miracle." No miracles came, just determination. They called Leandro, a Brazilian engineer working in Bucharest, and Vessi, one of Elena's top students. Within a week, the 4-person team was sketching out a plan. They started with rooftop solar, low cost, low tech. They listed buildings suitable for battery banks. They created an app to track energy use. They launched a fundraiser and shared their vision on social media. To their surprise, donations trickled in, even from strangers. A bakery offered their roof. A tech startup sent refurbished solar inverters. The Danish consulate quietly offered a grant. The Sofia Grid project had begun. Chapter 3. Resistance and Resolve. By week 4, the project had installed its first 5 panels. Then came the backlash. City inspectors arrived unannounced. "You need clearance for electrical rewiring," one said, holding a clipboard and frowning. "But it's a closed system. We're not connected to the national grid." "Still requires oversight," "You'll hear from legal," he muttered. That same day, someone spray-painted "Green Fantasy" on their supply van. Rumors spread that they were foreign spies or anti-government radicals or trying to privatize public utilities. A city councilor gave an interview saying, "These amateur projects threaten grid stability and public safety. We can't let engineers play politics." Thomas was furious. "They're acting like we're launching a coup." But Elena remained calm. "We expected resistance. We keep going." And they did. They held town halls. They opened the warehouse for public tours. Vesey created a TikTok account and filmed tutorials. Suddenly, teenagers wanted to help. One boy biked 5 kilometers to donate an old car battery. Elena came home exhausted, her hands stained with grease and cold. "Did you fix the city today?" Mira asked, already in bed. She kissed her forehead. "Not yet, but we're getting there." And then, the breakthrough. One night, during a blackout, the lights stayed on in a single building, the District 5 library. It glowed like a lighthouse. People gathered around it, charging phones, warming hands, sharing soup. Word spread fast. The project worked. Chapter 4. The Library That Lit the Night. In the days following the library's glow, something unexpected happened. Hope became contagious. People from outside District 5 came by to see the building that stayed bright in the dark. Parents brought children to read books. Students set up study circles by the radiator. Volunteers brought hot tea and blankets. The library became more than just a building. It was a symbol. "I think this is what a revolution looks like," Vesey said one evening, brushing snow off her coat as she entered the temporary control room set up in the basement. Elena, half asleep at her desk, blinked. "It's a library." "No," Vesey grinned. "It's a lighthouse." They began expanding the project. 2 apartment blocks were wired in for microsolar backups. A local bakery donated part of its generator fuel stock. Even the police station agreed to test a backup circuit. But with visibility came scrutiny. The mayor's office sent a formal inquiry. "Unlicensed energy distribution. Interference with city infrastructure," the document read. They were summoned to City Hall. Elena, Toma, and Vesey stood in a cold, echoing hallway outside the council chamber. "They want to shut us down," Toma whispered. "Call it a liability." "Then we explain," Elena said, clutching her folder of documents and diagrams. Inside the chamber, council members looked down at them from an elevated platform. Elena began slowly. "We are not rebels. We are engineers, citizens, parents. We are solving a crisis that has left children shivering in their homes and elders dying of cold." She laid out her graphs. She passed around photos of lit buildings in the blackout. She showed a video of Mira reading by electric light while the rest of the block was in darkness. There was silence in the room when she finished. A young councilwoman cleared her throat. "I have a daughter too," she said quietly. "I understand." They weren't shut down. They were told to submit plans, to apply for a local energy initiative permit. It was a small victory, but a real one. That night, Elena looked out from the library's rooftop. Below, faint golden light filled District 5 like a heartbeat. Chapter 5. Building a Network. Spring came late that year, but when it did, it carried electricity with it. Panels gleamed on rooftops. Wires stretched between buildings like silver vines. The Sofia Grid project had installed its third cluster, a co-op of 6 apartment blocks and a school. But the team had grown beyond Sofia. Requests poured in from other cities, Plovdiv, Varna, even Skopje and North Macedonia. Elena and Toma formed a non-profit. Leandro coordinated remote training for technicians. Vessi taught virtual courses on battery storage and urban planning. They called it the Commons Grid. Meanwhile, Mira's school adopted part of the model, installing solar lights and emergency power for its classrooms. Mira drew a picture of her mom on the chalkboard, surrounded by glowing houses. "She makes the city bright," she wrote in crayon. Elena hung the drawing above her desk. Still, there were challenges. In April, a shipment of batteries was held at customs. Rumors swirled of sabotage by fossil fuel lobbyists. A planned installation in an elderly housing complex was delayed for weeks due to bureaucratic confusion. And then, one morning, Toma arrived with a grave face. "They're trying to regulate microgrids as commercial utilities," he said. "We'd be taxed, licensed, possibly restricted." Elena paced the floor. "That's not interest action, that's control." "We'll need legal help." So they reached out to the community. A retired lawyer volunteered to draft petitions. University students organized letter-writing campaigns. Activists created infographics comparing blackout deaths to energy reform delays. What began as a project was now a movement. At a rally in the city square, Elena spoke into a mic powered by the very solar system she had helped build. "We are not asking for permission to survive. We are showing what survival looks like and what the future can be." The crowd erupted in cheers. That night, District 5 didn't just glow, it shone. Chapter 6. A Flicker Across Borders. News of District 5's resilience traveled farther than they ever expected. A journalist from The Guardian visited Sofia and published a long-form story titled "The Neighborhood That Refused to Freeze." Within days, messages arrived from Munich, Krakow, and even a small town in Lithuania, asking, "How can we do this too?" Elena, who once struggled to raise €500 for batteries, now found herself speaking to engineers in Brussels and students in Prague via live streams. Her inbox overflowed. At a conference in Vienna, Elena presented the Commons Grid model to EU energy advisors. She spoke about energy dignity, the right to warmth, light, and self-reliance. Back in Sofia, Mira stuck a map on the wall. Every city that reached out got a little red sticker. By April's end, there were 33. But then, the flicker dimmed. A heat wave hit southern Europe early. Hydropower reserves fell. An oil shipping route was disrupted in the Black Sea. Prices spiked again. The national grid began rationing. Blackouts returned, and panic crept back into the streets. One morning, Elena received a warning email. All unofficial micro-distribution networks are to cease operations pending compliance review. Elena closed her laptop. "We just became illegal," she said quietly. Chapter 7. The Underground Grid. Rather than give up, they adapted. Leandro proposed a bold idea. What if the Commons Grid went underground? Not literally, but operationally. a decentralized system of energy cells run by communities, not tied to any one name or logo. Each cell would use shared tech, open-source blueprints, and encrypted communications. Think global, act hyper-local. They launched GridHub, an anonymous platform where anyone could download guides, ask for help, and contribute ideas. Vesey coded it with a team of Ukrainian and Estonian volunteers. Toma created visual manuals. Elena translated key documents into 6 languages. By June, over 100 unofficial cells existed across Europe, from squatted community centers in Budapest to alpine schools in Switzerland. Mira colored them blue on her map. But secrecy had its price. They couldn't protect every cell. In some cities, police raided solar co-ops. In others, fire inspectors shut down community battery banks. A small cell in Serbia was vandalized by a nationalist group who saw the project as Western infiltration. Elena was tired. She told Toma one night, "We wanted to bring light, but we're operating in the dark." Still, the light persisted, quietly, bravely. Chapter 8. The Summer of Negotiation. Then came a turning point. In July, the EU Commission introduced the Community Energy Resilience Act, a framework that recognized neighborhood grids as part of the transition strategy. Elena was invited to speak at a round table in Brussels. She wore her only formal jacket, patched at the sleeve, and stood before policymakers with photos, not graphs. She showed a grandmother in Sofia reading by solar light, a school kitchen powered by a microgrid during a blackout, a boy charging his insulin pump in a community center. She said, "This isn't about competition, it's about survival." Some rolled their eyes, but others listened. 1 month later, District 5 was officially declared a Resilience Innovation Zone, allowed to operate legally under monitored guidelines. That victory triggered a domino effect. Other cities followed. The underground became accepted. Community power was no longer just a dream, it was a model. Elena returned home to find Mira waiting with a cake, homemade, crooked and lopsided, with one word written in jam: light. Chapter 9. The Autumn Grid. By autumn, the Sofia Commons grid powered 12 residential blocks, 4 clinics, 2 schools, 1 radio station, and hundreds of homes through energy-sharing apps. An electric van, painted by local kids, became the team's mobile unit, bringing tools, batteries, and hope. They developed a mentor program for other cities. Retired electricians trained young apprentices. Artists painted solar murals. A music festival ran entirely on solar and pedal power. Still, Elena remained cautious. Supply chains were fragile. Political winds shifted quickly. A new minister questioned whether these projects truly served the national interest. She met him once, brief, formal. He listened, but gave no promises. Meanwhile, Elena's health began to falter. Long nights, stress, exhaustion. Mira noticed before anyone else. "You don't have to fix everything," she said one evening. Elena smiled. Maybe not, but I can help others learn how to. She stepped back slightly from the daily work and let others lead. Vessi took over the grid coordination. Toma mentored new regional teams. Elena became what she once needed, a lighthouse. And then the true test arrived. Winter. Temperatures dropped. Gas deliveries halted again. Blackouts rolled across the continent. But in District 5, lights stayed on. Heat flowed. Schools remained open. A network of 400 cities now used some version of the Commons grid. France adopted national legislation protecting energy co-ops. Germany provided tax breaks. In Ukraine, a war-scarred village used Elena's design to rebuild their school. One night, Elena and Mira stood on their roof. Snow fell gently. Below them, Sofia shimmered in hundreds of warm glows from different rooftops. Each one a story. Each one a choice. "Is it over?" Mira asked. Elena shook her head. "No, but we're no longer in the dark." Thanks for watching. Take action today, not tomorrow. Press subscribe. And let's keep learning together. You're doing great. See you in the next one. Stay strong.